Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Justin, and I am your host. And today I'm joined with Friendship Commanders. How you guys doing?
Yay, hi, we're
Good.
good.
How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Just got back from work, so I was like rushing to get home because I was excited for this interview. And yeah, and it's it's awesome that you guys accepted to come on the show because I'm a huge fan. Like I know, and I say this a lot to people that come on the podcast and stuff, but it's the reason being is because I just love everybody that's come on here. So far, the music is so diverse. Everybody's so different, and I think that's the beauty of music in itself is diversity and just the weirdness that things come from albums and stuff like that. So
For
and
sure.
and your guys' albums are absolutely stunning, and
Oh,
I can't wait to get into this. So
huge thanks. We really appreciate you.
no problem. Thank you. And I appreciate you guys. So I'd like to ask, how did you guys like start Friendship Commanders?
You go ahead, Jer.
I don't know. Well,
You know.
so the initial idea was to play some of Buick's solo music, but sort of rock it up because we were, tired of, doing a more polite thing here in town. And
We had a handful of songs that were for that
yeah,
project.
and initially it was going to contain another guitar player, I think, with you playing acoustic. But then he ended up canceling like 2 days out. So we just went rock trio. And it snowballed from there into something much more aggressive till we got to where we are now. But
Yeah, we played with a bassist for the first couple of years, and we've been a duo. This is our 6th year as a duo, and it got much heavier when we became a duo. Much, much heavier.
And also with only two of you guys, it's the amount of control that you have over the music is pretty much like it's pretty simple. I mean, compared to like guys that are like have like 6 members and stuff like that where everybody's different. So that's
Oh
awesome
yeah.
that you guys are able. I'm actually glad that you guys went for the heavier aspect because it gives I don't know, like you have like your voice is absolutely incredible over some hard tracks, and
Thank you.
it's like happy doom basically.
That's a great description. Thanks so much.
I'll take it.
How did you guys decide on the name Friendship Commanders?
So I actually have a jacket that says Friendship Commanders on the back. It's a vintage like Letterman jacket from someone's high school, and I got it years before we started the project, and I've been wearing it as my winter jacket since then. And when we started the band, I was like, we had a bunch of different names on the table, and I thought, let's just call it Friendship Commanders because it's such a weird set of words. It sounded like a superhero team or something. I don't know. And it turns out there is no actual Friendship Commanders team. It's like a combination of things about the high school name. So we didn't really steal it. It just is what the jacket said. But as it turned out, we ended up making a record with Steve Albini. We tracked it in 2017 and it came out in 2018 called Bill.
Mm-hmm.
And that record is actually an album about friendship. So the name was almost like a foreshadowing of what some of the writing would be about later on.
Nice, and it's super unique. That's like I've said this multiple times as well. Is the first thing a consumer looks for or looks at is one album cover to the name,
Yeah.
and you have to have something that stands out. And just because like the music's so unique that the name has to be just as unique. So I dig it. So
Thank you.
what inspired you guys to make music?
As the band or in general?
In general, actually, I like to know exactly like what inspired you to just pick up a guitar or drums or anything.
Go ahead.
I don't actually know the answer to that question. I was born in a musical family, and I've just kind of always played seriously. I don't have a memory, but yeah, we were both born in musical families, and I've been playing drums since I came out, pretty much.
Yeah, we both had a stop it. Rapid. Sorry, we have a cat in here. We both come from musical families for sure, so we're surrounded by people playing music, which is a great privilege and a great introduction. But I didn't actually start playing guitar until I was 20, and I started playing guitar on the day that I started my first band. I didn't go through any preliminary like learning. I just was like, I think I might be a songwriter, and this is how I have to go about it. I felt really strongly about playing an instrument as a songwriter, so that I would be able to really contribute and not always be at the mercy of having to write with someone else necessarily.
Yeah.
But guitar was the natural go-to. There's something about the way that I feel music that lent itself well to guitar.
Nice. So it translates very well too. So
thank you.
And I was doing a little reading, I guess you could say, and I thought it was swapped. I thought you played drums and did vocals, and he did guitar. So when I was reading, I was like, oh, okay, I had that backwards. So it's if you guys that are watching and listening have not heard these guys before, you're missing out, because, and I say this, the one track that definitely stands out is Stone Child. And
thank you.
It's hard to even explain. Like, I'm kind of lost of words because it's very beautifully written. How long did it take you guys to write Stone Child?
I wrote Stone Child very quickly, but I will admit that I heard the music and the melodies in my head for a couple of weeks before I sat down to write it. And I kind of knew it was about Stone Child Chief Stick, but I sometimes have to listen to the music in my head for a little bit before I sit down with it and play it on guitar. But I mean, less than an hour, I would say, because by the time I sat down to write it, I kind of already knew how it went. And, but it was very emotional to actually let it through and to sit down and write the lyrics. And I think the first couple dozen times we played it, I cried when we performed it. It just felt very, I don't know. There's that song has a little bit of like emotional electricity in it for me.
And as a consumer, it actually, for me as well. So when I first heard it, I can't remember if I found you guys on Instagram or if I found you on Spotify first, but one of the two happened. And I'm always on my computer. I'm guilty of that. And I always have albums playing. And I think when that song came on, I had to like stop and kind of sit back. So I listened to it one time through and thought, okay, I got to listen to that again. And so I came back around and I listened to it again, and yeah, it has so much emotion built up in it. And both you guys like bring so much to the table when it comes to this, like your drums building up and then your vocal just kind of like exploding out of you. It's incredible. It's definitely incredible.
Thank you.
Guys, please, I'm not stressing this enough. Like, you need to take a listen. At least listen to Stone Child, because if that doesn't get you hooked, I don't know what will. It's absolutely amazing. So,
thank you.
Can you guys explain your creative process? How do you guys go about creating the tracks that you guys have?
You mean like in a recording
just like context? Getting together and just basically creating like an album. Like, how do you guys create these things? Like, because each song is so different and unique that I don't know. It's like, how do you even process all that?
Well, more recently things have been a little bit quicker for us as far as like putting sets of songs together and recording and releasing them. But Bill, the record we made with Albini, I mean, that was written over the course of like 18 months. And, I'll hear a song and write a song and bring it to Jerry and see what he thinks about it. Sometimes I don't even know if what I've written is a song. That's often, I just have music in my head all the time. So we'll take it to the rehearsal space. Sometimes I'll play it for him acoustic, but more often than not, I like it to be heard at the volume that I hear it in my head. And
there's usually an acoustic with me on bass jam. That's how a song sort
couch
of tested.
Jam. Yeah. And sometimes I'm just so excited when I've finished something that I just have to play it, right away for him. But usually we take it to the space and we run it and we see if it immediately feels like it belongs in our, like in our world, in the Friendship Commanders world. And then, so we actually do sometimes end up with a couple of songs that don't make it into a set of recordings. There were some songs written in the Bill era that didn't make it onto that record, just because as it turned out, like I said, that record was primarily focused around friendship. And then Hold On to Yourself, which was a 5-song EP we released last April, was about being a trauma survivor. And so the work largely centered around that. But I appreciate the note that all the songs are different, because I like to put a batch of songs together that work, but aren't just like 5 of the same thing in a row,
Exactly. And when I say they're different, I mean they're different, but the flow of an album it's there. It's not like all over the place or anything like that. So it's just crazy. I just couldn't believe how dynamic, and I'm not saying like going into music you should never judge an album or anything like that, but typically, I don't get as wowed as I was with your guys' work. And I'm not trying to talk you up, I promise.
Thank you.
I'm a fan. So the dynamic that you guys have and the emotion is if listeners and people watching, if you're into music for the emotion, I mean, holy hell, it's there. And when you write your lyrics, do you have like a typical theme? Like you said, the Bill was friendship. Everything was revolved around friendship. So is each album or EP themed?
Not on purpose. We sort of figured that out like toward the end of putting the songs together, like, oh, this is a body of work about this, but I certainly don't set out necessarily to write within a theme. It just sort of, I just think it's sort of a response to whatever I'm going through, whatever's happening in the world. This last 4 years have been so intense and high impact that it was really easy to find things to write about and to respond to, so we've just sort of followed the songs where they've led us, and the theme has kind of presented itself.
And I'll say Buick's is the songwriter in the band. I contribute in small ways, largely arrangement, but
production on our recordings for sure.
But she's the lyric-minded, theme-minded person. She writes the songs and brings them to the rehearsal space, and we go from there. So every song she writes in a certain time period will tend to be about the same subject, because that's what's on her mind at the time from an outsider perspective. Yeah, and I
really have to beat it to death.
I've also there have been times where I've brought up doing older songs, and that's just not of interest to her whatsoever. And a lot of our older songs don't really fit with where we are right now, and it's hard to rally any sort of we moved on from that perspective. So yeah, I don't know.
It's hard as a creative person to want to stay with your old work, even though we love it. But after we've toured on stuff for a few years, it's like I feel like different on a DNA level, and the new work has started to write itself.
Definitely, and you evolve over time, so it's almost not in a bad way. It's not digressing in a bad way, but musically, it kind of is, because I know what you mean. If you write a song 5 years ago and you've definitely gotten better and slowly evolved over time, it's kind of hard to go back to those things.
It is.
And if you played it 1,000 times as well, it's like, I don't want to play that. I do. I totally understand what you mean.
I mean, those songs are like really old friends, and I so love and respect them. But yeah, it's hard to throw myself into them the same way. I think it is for both of us.
Yeah.
Nice. So you guys both came from a musical family, like you said earlier. So is that like your basis of your inspiration, or do you have like your own individual inspirations?
That's a good question. Do you want to go first?
Again, it's hard. I mean, so, we both came from musical families and completely different scenes. So I was born into a sort of working class Nashville musician family.
Here, yeah.
Yeah. So it was just music was what I was going to do. There was no expectation of me becoming a doctor or anything like that. That actually would have been disappointing to my family. So it just was what I was going to do. I definitely, I guess I was lucky to become a young man in the 90s and experience the great grunge metal movement of that time. And that was really what always moved me. And my dad pushed that stuff on me because he thought the drummers in those bands were great and were really doing something new and interesting and playing with a lot of chops and technical facility. So I really latched onto that. And I guess that's, it just always was there. I took the ball and ran with it and tried to kind of, I guess my inspiration was to escape the industry trappings that kind of ensnared my family. I wanted to more have my own project and didn't really want to be a working musician, which is, a fine job, but it's not like my dream whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You don't want to be confined to one thing, basically.
Yeah. And I want to play my own music, not somebody else's.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Miami. My parents are both songwriters, and my brother's also a really killer songwriter. But I'm from like a very bohemian. I grew up around Fred Neil, this amazing songwriter who is a friend and collaborator of my mother's. So songwriting has been a huge focus in my life and a huge presence in my culture. And I would say that just being a student of songcraft and knowing that I had perspectives to give voice to, and also I'm an activist, and there's so much to be spoken about in this life that I think it all comes together for me. But as you say, it's highly emotional for me. I sort of explode with music when I write, and then I learn about myself from my own songwriting. Like sometimes I don't even know how I'm doing until I write the work, and then I piece it together from that. Like the music is more comprehensive than my own thoughts.
No, that's actually interesting. Like way of putting it too. It's like you can't fully get it out unless it's to like a rhythm, basically.
Yep.
Music is your journal, basically.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
That's awesome though, because there's a lot of people out there that that are like that, and you need to embrace it because
Yes.
it's the best tool in our arsenal that we have, especially, humans being so impacted, with trends and everything going around you. You need something to get your inner stuff out, basically.
I agree. And just put it somewhere,
Yeah.
So if you can
Be
put it into
constructive
music.
with it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, don't there's a lot of people that have a lot of emotions, and either they don't do anything at all with it, or they do completely negative things with it, and it's
Right.
You need to find some sort of art, and it could be anything.
Yeah. Agreed.
Smash some stuff, because some people like that. It's just as simple as that. But no, that's awesome that you guys do it that way, and that you do basically write all your feelings out into these tracks, because you could feel it. You could feel
Thank
it
you.
whether or not you were going through the same thing you were going through at that time, or even if you're not feeling anything at all. It's like it definitely brings you out of feeling numb, basically. You guys are definitely medicine. I will give you that. You are.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
So I've talked you guys up, basically. Even though I know that's what people are going to say. Oh, you're talking about your time. Can you guys describe this is for everybody that's watching and listening that have not heard you before.
Yep.
Can you describe the music that you guys make?
Ooh, you want to take that one first?
I would say that it is like almost sometimes meditative, melodic, heavy music that is very, very expressive, but also very songy. Like it's not music that goes on forever like some heavy music. I mean, the songs are real, traditional song form songs. And I think that you can be inspired to sing when you hear Friendship Commanders. I hope that's what happens. I hope people sort of howl at the moon with us.
Yeah. I guess for me, I would call it melodic song form, heavy sludge rock metal.
Yeah.
That kind of gets everything in, maybe.
Yeah, we're both hugely influenced by grunge too, like in similar and different ways. So I think that makes it in there, but we're not exactly grunge,
Yeah, and the sludge part is very true. I didn't even think about that. My mind typically just goes straight to doom with
Totally.
that style,
Right.
but it's not the drab doom that people are used to. It's
Right.
it's melancholy, but also uplifting in a weird way. But it's hard to explain. So
Well, it's weird what you get into. You know, doom vocalists quite often are still sort of screamy or like way off in the background singing in a high part of their voice.
Yeah.
Because it's doom, they're supposed to sound ghostly or whatever.
Yeah, mine are not like that.
For some reason, sludge vocalists tend to have big, powerful voices a lot of the time. So that's why I go to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely. So there's oh man, the name is escaping me right now. But there's a doom / sludge group out there that has similar vibe as you guys do, but the guy screams more. And I think actually all he does is scream, in fact. But this music is so underrated that I feel that more and more people should hear this, because when people hear metal, the word metal basically,
Right.
a lot of people tend to walk away because screaming has definitely flooded the metal scene.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't like that. And I understand. There's a lot of people, I mean, even my fiance's like, how do you even understand that? And it's like, I've been around it all these years, so.
Right.
And I think people are afraid of metal because it is very rebellious and it's very in your face. But metal can also be beautiful, and I think you guys captured that very well.
Thank you. I
Thank
so
you.
appreciate that. We try to also be inclusive. We try to be a band in the heavy spectrum that is available to all kinds of people,
Yeah, and I think if you're a metal enthusiast, you definitely will like Friendship Commanders. So that's hands down. Your albums, Bill and
Yes.
Dave. How did you
Yes.
guys create the names of those? I was so curious on that.
Well, Dave was first, and it was named after, it's sort of just like a joke that never ended, but we were trying to think of the name for the album, and we didn't want to be too self-serious and call it like the first album, or I don't know. But you can go a lot of ways when you're naming your projects. And so I said we should call it Dave Walsh, who was our friend. And Jerry said, or Dave. And we were like, okay, working title Dave. And then it just stuck. And we asked that Dave, who is a visual artist and a musician as well, if he would provide some artwork for the cover. So the Dave actually did the pineapple spray paint artwork that's on the front cover.
Nice.
And so that's how that happened. And that album was like a hope themed album, sort of unity and hope. And then Bill was such a different time. We were a year into the Trump administration, and we had sort of
No hope.
things. Yeah, no hope,
Yeah.
the absence of hope. And so we named the album after somebody that I had admired for a long time and had kind of let me down in some ways. So it's still a send up, but a very different send up. And that, I don't know. We just thought it was kind of a great set of names, Bill and Dave, and
The
there they
alignment
are.
couldn't have been better, though. I will say that, because now that I know kind of the background of each album, you have you said that Dave was more going on hope, right?
Yeah.
And then to go into no hope, it's like you couldn't have had that perfectly,
Yeah. I think to us too was sort of an interesting time. Our earlier stuff had more of a punk bent to it. But the process of going into Bill and what the album was about was us moving away from that genre, which wasn't even really something we had to force ourselves to do. But
Yeah, that was organic.
we never really felt at home in that scene, and it kind of turned us off. So we just kind of naturally moved into a heavier sound. And there are still, I feel like, remnants of that on Bill, but for the most part, it's into the sludgier world of things.
Yeah, that's where that really started to happen. So
Nice.
those are the names.
Nice. I like stories behind albums. I get so disappointed when people are like, I just threw it on there, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. You got to have, it's an art. You got to grasp it. But you actually said something very interesting. You said organic.
Yeah.
That is the best way to describe you guys. That right there.
Thanks.
Now, organic metal. I think that should definitely be a thing, and I think you guys should own that, because it is. It's super organic, because it's everything about you all in one piece, basically.
Thank you.
Awesome.
First, I'm gonna start with you, Buick. Your vocals are awe-inspiring. Tell me, like, what... Because we kind of talked about your inspirations and everything like that, but what inspired you to just go all out and just express yourself so, like, loudly but clearly?
You know what? Thank you, first of all, for the amazing compliment and for asking this question. I spent a lot of time before this band being smaller vocally and smaller in my life and how I showed up to things. And I have regrets about it, and I've had to make a lot of amends to myself about it, because it's really nobody else's fault but my own. And when we started Friendship Commanders, it was just this amazing opportunity to like go off script and use the voice that I have that goes all the way down into my bones, and just go big, just be big for a little bit. And when we started getting into talking about like the Hold On to Yourself record, talking about it being an abuse survivor, I was like, I'm proud to be a woman singing this work. I'm proud to be a woman with this voice singing this work and being big about it. Because I need that example to exist in the world. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist otherwise, but I wanted it to like be on record that happened, and to have given a big voice to it. Because I think sometimes we tend to talk about trauma and abuse in quiet voices and be kind of precious about it. And that's okay too. But I've done the work to have ownership of my story. And so to be able to bring it up and melodically and still have harmonies and all of these other sort of supporting musical ideas around it. And to have Kurt Ballou mix that record, that was the first record of ours he mixed, and have him really make the voice like just volcanic. You know, I'd never heard my voice like that. And that was a huge gift. So that's where I got that. That's
always awesome too, to have someone that's incredibly talented backing the album, and you're like, oh man, I sound like that. You know, it's great. It's great. So you're the heartbeat because your drumming is, oh man. Okay. It's unique. It's definitely, it has, and I was so glad that you said 90s, because I definitely got the 90s vibe from you. And honestly, in my opinion, I'm going to be 32 years old this year, and I think that the 90s was the best time for music. Hands down. I just can't stress that enough. But you're the heartbeat of this group. You really are. And it's like, to have a duo that has a strong heartbeat, and then the body to hold that heartbeat, it's impressive. So when you were coming to her with your parts, did you know that you wanted to be explosive and like boom sounding? I guess I can't explain it with any better words than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of I've only ever wanted to play rock music that after, you know, we play a show and afterwards I felt like I was going to die. That's all I ever. I don't know why.
That was the goal.
We talk about it as like we talk about it often, like we don't have to do this, but we do.
Yeah.
We could just be like a nice medium volume band or something.
I know, we could have played violin.
But yeah, I mean, like it was the 90s guys playing really hard with like big loud drum sounds and huge drums and taking up a lot of space to like make up for, you know, small band, just guitar, drums, and bass need to fill everything. That really inspired me. So that's all I've ever wanted to do. And honestly, this is the first band I've ever been in where I really got to play like myself. Because, you know, Buick supports it and welcomes it, and that's great. And she writes songs in which it fits. So
yeah, like I said, it's a perfect duo. You couldn't get any better than that. So
thank you so much.
But yeah, it's all I ever want to do is hit really hard and play loud and big.
That's the drummer's dream. Honestly, it really is, because it's hard to find a band where all, like, both instruments or all instruments in general, all have like an equal playing field. And you know, you guys, your guitar is super loud, super just filling, you know, by itself, the guitar alone. And then you have incredible vocals on top, and then this enormous, monstrous drum track behind it. It's insane to me. It really is. So your guys' music, did it have a deliberate direction when you guys started, or you guys definitely evolved, but you know where I'm going with that. Did it have like a direction?
No, we found it accidentally. We demoed those first 4 songs and then we put it away for like a year and a half and we're like, that was cool, but we had other stuff. We both were doing other projects. And then we came back to it about 7 years ago and started to do it a little bit more seriously. We started touring. We did our first tour in late 2014. I think it was just like playing together a bunch where we started to kind of find what we do. You know, it's easy to do things that are like this or like that other thing and sort of genreify yourself. And I think we did that in the beginning and it doesn't really fit, you know. Yeah. I just, for us, like leaning into the truth of wherever we were at the given time was the key to finding what we sound like. And it will change. I mean, the stuff that I'm writing now is already different from Stone Child, which was just released in October. But I think that's okay. You know, we just follow it where it goes. And we really play well together, which is, I'm very grateful for that. Like when we go to the rehearsal space with new songs, they sound like us right away because I think we just sort of like are comfortable with what we can do together. Yeah. The feels are good together.
Yeah, know? Definitely. And you have to have that in, you know, a team. You're a team. You're basically,
we are.
You got to have that vibe connection. If you don't, I mean, it's hard.
It is hard.
And I've been there. It's definitely hard. So
yeah, we've all been in that band.
You guys have toured. You guys have played some pretty amazing shows. Have you ever dealt with performance anxiety?
Oh, I have like debilitating stage fright every day, all the time. Wow. Really bad. And people used to say to me like, oh, it'll get better once you do this a lot. And it's not gotten any better. It's very difficult, but I believe that it's part of the job to perform live. And I do love to tour and I'm always happy that we did it. But yeah, it's very difficult for me to play live. For sure.
It's hard to explain for people that have never been in a band or never played live or anything like that. You get this sense of self-awareness right before you go on stage, and then you know throw 1,000 things into your brain and you're trying to sift it all out before you jump on stage. And I know nervousness is huge for a lot of people, and myself included. I mean, I played a show my last show was in 2019. I've taken a break from music and at least playing live and stuff like that. But before I got on stage, I mean, I was like that. And the guys were like, man, you've played shows so many times. What's going on? And I'm like, it's just
I don't
happens.
know.
Yeah.
I know. I don't have an explanation for it. It's not really based in logic.
Yeah, it really isn't because you've perfected your craft. You have your art, which you know inside and out. Mm-hmm. All that's different is that there's 100 little eyes or even more in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's it, you know. And it's weird. It's weird how things.
Jerry doesn't really get it.
No, I'm really at home behind a drum kit. It's where I'm most normal.
He is a robot. He's very, very steady.
As soon as you get behind that kit, it's just you're zoned in. You just know.
Yeah, I mean, when we started playing in front of big audiences for the first few times, I think I was like, man, I hope they like my band for a second, but that's about it. I think that's about as far as it gets.
Meanwhile, I can't have caffeine past 9 a.m. on a show day. I have to do yoga bends right before we go on stage to get my head below my heart. You know, it's like there's a whole system.
Oh yeah. You have to, your checklist before you jump on stage.
100%.
So I have 2 more questions, I guess you could say, for you guys. A big one is you guys are starting to really make a name for yourself. I've noticed, I've kind of put the hashtag FriendshipCommanders out there to see who else has, tagged you guys and stuff. And, the following is starting to come, and I can feel it for you guys. I definitely can.
Thank you.
So that being said, you guys have been in the industry for a long time. What would you change about the music industry? Like, because that I only ask certain bands and certain artists this. What is like the one thing that you would change?
I think that the people that are holding a lot of the doors closed or open look the same. I think there are a lot of white cis men still at the front door of all kinds of things, whether it's digital distribution, labels, PR, a lot of stuff, and that definitely has become really tiresome for me personally. I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but
Well, I agree with that. I also think we've kind of seen the promise of the democratization of the music business kind of led to the erosion of all democratization of the music business. Because
couldn't have said it better.
yeah, Spotify and all these digital, all these like outlets on the internet that allow you to easily put out music, kind of promised that and then made it worse than it's ever been.
Yeah.
It's just impossible to get ahead in an algorithm-based world without really, the best music was always like put forth by, unfortunately, a type of gatekeeper. And I don't know what the right answer is. It's all too entrenched and complicated right now, but I think America needs to maybe subsidize the arts like every other country does. And we need to figure out a way to make a system that supports new, young, fledgling artists
of all kinds
and gives them fair opportunity, because basically it's insane that the old major label model is better than what we have now.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I agree.
Yeah. And this is not going to change, and it's probably only going to get worse, but I personally loathe this system where like the numbers indicate how we are doing, like the Spotify numbers. It's very Black Mirror to me that like everything is just a numbers game. And I know it has always been a numbers game in a sense, but it hasn't always been public. And I feel like it creates this like pervasive competitiveness and just kind of panic, honestly. Like that, you're a failure if your numbers aren't whatever they're supposed to be in a certain bracket. And I think that that's detrimental. And I think it shuts down real conversation, real creativity. And
that's a problem with, the democratization, because it used to be the numbers were an industry game.
Yeah.
And at that point it makes sense. But when you're like, we're inviting, normal everyday folks into this, it's when it gets weird.
I don't love the feeling.
And it's, it's like, it's kind of that awkward. It's part of the awkward thing that was Dave Grohl brought up, that Pro Tools made it so that anyone could make an album. And, yes, everyone should be able to make an album, but should everyone be able to get an album out in a mass audience and have all the access to all these tools in the same way? Yes, maybe, but I don't know.
I still just think that the numbers are abusive.
Yeah, they are. The numbers are definitely abusive. I'm in the same boat, and I've said this before for people that are watching and listening that have heard me say this before. Spotify, Apple Music, DistroKid, all these different organizations that hold our music. It helps, but it also destroys. And you guys said it very well. It's a weird transition, because
it is.
Putting an album out and you get 1,000 listens or 100,000 listens, it doesn't matter, because the numbers really don't translate well, especially for, like you said, the algorithm. It doesn't. I honestly don't think that numbers even matter anymore.
And it's ripe for abuse. And that's been, uncovered
it's
many
rough.
times.
Yeah. And going back to the big wigs and stuff like that, I feel that Spotify, Apple Music, all these things, yes, they do still get a cut of money for bands and artists that do have a label through them and stuff.
Right.
But I feel like it's killing them at the same time. The underground scene is as big as it's ever been.
Yep.
Just like you said, everybody can make an album now. Whether it's a good album, whether it's an album that gets out there, that's neither here nor there.
It's immaterial.
Yeah, exactly. It's killing the bigger guys, which in turn, is sad to say, it kills the whole entire industry.
Yeah.
And that's just, kind of what I've been thinking, like, oh man, if these bigwigs go out, what does that mean for all the smaller guys? Because
it's an awkward thing that the health of the big companies, or the big whatever you want to call them, is indicative of the health of the whole industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it benefits everybody when they're doing well in a very weird way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely weird, but I want to leave this episode on a high note. And
Yes.
I always tell myself, why do I ask that question at the end of the podcast? Because sometimes when people like yourself and we agree on this, I've gotten way different answers where they're like, oh, it's great. Wouldn't change anything. Well, you haven't really been in the industry that long. But I leave it at the end because I think it's a serious question for serious artists. And yeah, you guys definitely said it well, and I couldn't agree more. But on a high note, what is next for Friendship Commanders? Because I am super interested in knowing this. I'm following you guys closely.
Thank you so much. There is new work being written and worked up, and I think we love the idea of doing another short form release, like an EP or something, because it's just such an intense time, and I don't think anybody has the attention span for albums right now. I think that 4 or 5 songs or 6 songs is sort of like where we're at as far as like what we're wanting to put forth. And I'm sure we'll do a couple of live streams coming up. The live stream thing is tough. It's I wish I loved it more than I do. I do think it's really important, and I think accessibility is enormously important, and the live stream serves a certain kind of accessibility, but it's still very disconnected feeling, I think on both sides.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, we'll definitely have new music maybe this year.
Awesome.
Yeah. It was a big year of work last year, so we're enjoying some downtime right now. We'll have a clearer idea, I guess. In the next
we
month
took
or
January off from playing all the time.
Yeah, I'm just being greedy because I know last year was big for you guys, especially like the release of Stone Child. I mean, like I said, guys that are listening and watching, I can't stress it more. If you want a first good track to listen to it, don't judge ever in any type of music. Don't judge, because a lot of bands out there have one track that may be bad. I'm not saying your guys is
certainly
bad at all, but definitely check out Stone Child and check out Bill and Dave and everything that they've released, because
thank you.
And in my opinion, before I let you guys go, I would start from the beginning, because you see how the story progresses, and it's not a story that you did on purpose, but it's a story that you guys are writing, and it's really cool because it's
thank you.
This is definitely for people that are music enthusiasts. You can find the story within the albums.
Yeah.
And it's a real life story, which are the best type of stories. So
thank you, friend.
Yeah, thank you. So like I said, you guys, my name is Justin, and I was your host for Next Album Please. This is the Friendship Commanders. I'm so grateful that you guys came on, and I just continue to watch you guys, and I know that you're going to be so successful in this, I have nothing but high hopes for you guys.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be part of what you do, and we really are grateful that you're including us in your work. Thank you for elevating us, and we elevate you right back. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, you guys, it was fun talking with you, and we'll catch you next time.
All the love, Justin.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.